Hey, Mike here with another No Bullshit Saturday, and I think it's finally time to say it, UX is dead. Have you noticed the recent industry change of job titles? Everyone's a product designer now, like UX is nowhere to be found. It's implied, of course, but it's not really visible anymore. And I think there are a couple of reasons for this, so let's go through the main ones. So the biggest change in user experience actually came to be just after the first iPhone came out. And of course people were doing user experience work before, but I think that one day in 2007 actually redefined the UX industry, because it brought something completely new, it brought something completely different, and people needed to adjust to it. In the simplest terms, people were used to doing this or this, and now they had to adjust to doing this. And since this new trend exploded, people started to use their devices everywhere. So it wasn't just sitting at the desk at home anymore. It was on a subway, on a train, just walking around the city, everywhere. So people were using the devices in a completely new way. And also the mobile devices had a lot more functionality, because they had the location tracking, they had maps, they had cameras, augmented reality, they had all those tools that you could use while in the field actually. And also, let's not forget having the entire internet in your pocket. So UX people have become like industry gods for a while after this happened, and their fancy jargon and their colorful cards just happen to be everywhere. The developers usually looked at the UX crowd like they were a little bit crazy, but then the CEOs were completely starstruck. After all, if somebody's sitting in a room and mapping out customer journeys and then completely posting like those little notes everywhere, and it's like a colorful checkerboard, and then they scribble some weird things everywhere, and it's like it seems like the genius at work here is doing something so profoundly breathtaking that it's gonna be amazing for the company. And that lasted for a while. And of course, the general principles of research, design, test, and repeat are still valid, and they should be used to building digital products. People are starting to see through the UX bullshit a little bit now. That is mostly due to the fact that the UX industry has become dishonest. I think that most of the current UX work has simply become a waste of time. There is a lot of useless processes, and it's like stretching everything out as much as you can and billing by the hour for completely useless tasks. And a lot of filler that is completely not needed, and at the same time there's just not enough design happening in it. And while design is needed and necessary, a lot of these processes really aren't, so products can't really be done without them. And the customers and the companies are starting to see that now. And of course, like, since it's been so many years since the first iPhone, we have a lot of collective knowledge on how to do these things right. And we know how to build digital products in a way that they work. We know how to onboard people, we know how to make them register, and we know how to make them buy stuff. So it all boils down to the value proposition again, and the sort of product market fit that you have. Because if your product is really great, people are gonna drool over it anyway. So it doesn't really matter what you're gonna do in the UX department, unless, like, you know, as long as it's still working, it's perfect. And right now, world has become faster and faster, and the product building processes are constantly changing into very fast and agile ways, which leads me to the second thing. Your clients are designers now. So we work with startups quite a lot, but we also work with some big established corporations. And we noticed in the last 2 years, a lot of these people from both the startups and the corporations have learned to use the design tools. Most of them use Figma or Sketch because it makes it easy for them to actually edit the flows themselves and come up with some concepts and ideas. Rough, but still precise enough to actually be a good starting point for a conversation. And for those 2 years, and it's rapidly changing towards it happening even more often, we're getting wireframes from these people that are already done by them, and they're not UX people, they're just regular people from these companies, from those corporations and the startups. So right now a huge chunk of the UX designer work is actually being done by the client. And of course the stuff that they send is not perfect, but at the same time those regular people, those non-UX designers, have been using digital products for 10 or 15 years now. So they know how mobile apps operate, they know how to make a successful website because they've seen other people do it. So you can apply the basic rules of logic and just duplicate what worked before. And back again to the value proposition. So it doesn't really matter what the flow of your registration is if people are not gonna register because your product is shit. So a lot of these wireframes that those customers send in are just as good as the ones we were getting from the proper UX gurus back in the day. And it takes them a lot faster to actually deliver that because there's no filler, there's no stupid meetings with persona building and proto personas and card sorting and all that shit. They just come up with the flow because they have a value proposition in their product, so they know why their product is awesome in the first place. And of course some research led to that as well, but that's another story. So of course we have to correct them sometimes, come up with some slightly better flows and some minor adjustments to the actual information architecture. But in most cases it's actually just about painting a much nicer UI on top of what they have, making some small adjustments and coming up with very nice micro interactions. And I think that's why speed designing is actually gaining traction right now, because people don't really want to waste time building personas and coming up with some weird role-playing games that nobody cares about. They want to get to the design part just after the research and skip all the filler. And I think that they now have the capacity to actually do that themselves. So once again, UX is dead in itself, but of course we need to care about the user experience, but we need to consider that the products themselves are actually a result of the right product market fit and the value proposition, and you can really build a very successful product using really only the good practices that others actually have done. And using just logic, you can come up with, copying the registration process from an app you like and the checkout process from another product. So it doesn't really matter that much. And that's why most people are now product designers, apparently. But I think that shift to less bullshit in the industry and more actual designing and more actual moving the rectangles around is a good thing, because we can come up with better and more innovative products much faster if we don't waste the time on meetings and countless hours of talking that really doesn't lead to anything. So yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about the steady decline of the UX industry techniques, because some of them are completely going away and in a few years we won't be doing them anymore. So are your clients also using Sketch or Figma to deliver things to you and you just only correct after them, or you do all the work still? So all the best, don't forget to subscribe and see you next time. Cheers!